Hello everyone, Nick Jacobson, continuing our series here with active shooter response. This is our 5th episode, the reality of the fight. And there's actually going to be 4 videos tied into this episode. I'm going to break them up into 4 videos because there's a need to make sure that we have a lot of clarity. Now, the focus is still, we're going to start within the public school system, because that's where we started with learning how to deal with active threat, active shooter, and then we'll expand beyond that in later episodes. But for now, the one thing we need to know from the get-go is that after you go through these 4 different episodes, you are not going to come out of it a trained fighter. That's just the facts. If you want to learn fighting tactics, more advanced things like Krav Maga or other types of combat arts that involve dealing with individuals with weapons, then I highly recommend you go out and do that. All we're going to show you here are some basic tools when you know absolutely nothing and you have no ability to go off and learn advanced fighting techniques. These are the basics. Okay, so something to remember, and this is something we constantly have to remind students and kids, is that when it comes to a fight, the fight is only when your life is in imminent danger. You are not going out looking for a fight. Whose job is it to go look for the fight? That's the responding law enforcement officers. The individuals who are lawfully carrying their weapons, they are the ones who go looking for the fight. And I would even take this a step further and say to that good guy with a gun, you carry a firearm, but let's say hypothetically you've never had any advanced firearms training. I'm not talking about going to the range and doing some cool stuff like your John Wick target practice. I'm talking about actually trained in what to do in combat situations, military level training, or at very least law enforcement level training. If you've not been trained in that and you have a firearm in you, you still are not the one who should be going and looking for one of these shooters and trying to stop them. There's stories maybe I'll share at a later time about individuals who have gone and done that and been mistaken by law enforcement for being the shooter and have been shot and killed in the process. You don't go looking for the fight. Great, you have a tool with you. If the fight comes to you, you can use that tool being your firearm. But do not go looking for the fight. There are individuals that's their job. The fight is what comes to you, and you have to do whatever it takes in a fight to survive. I want to talk about what works and what doesn't over these 4 episodes. Before we get much further, this is out of that original 2012 Run, Hide, Fight video. Now, down the road, I'll start nitpicking each and every one of the episodes. Again, let's give a little credit where credit's due. The benefit was that the federal government gave something. There was nothing really available to talk about when it came to active threat response beyond hide and hope. Go hide, hope, wait for the police to come save the day. Here you have the final scene within their Run, Hide, Fight series. And, there's a huge emphasis on improvised weapons. And I'm going to point that out here. I mean, you got this guy with a fire extinguisher as the gunman comes in with his AR-style weapon. You have this guy. I had to actually really slow down, back this up. This guy has a belt wrapped around his fist. This guy was either a street scrapper or he had a dad who really punished him a lot. So what did he do? He whips his belt off, he wraps it. He's about to club him with his belt. He's ready for a fist fight, not a gunfight. Look at this one. This is a hot pot of coffee. Now, obviously, there's no coffee in it. Otherwise, she'd be dumping hot coffee on her head right now. And this guy's got a chair. This is what they show you, and then they freeze frame. I know they freeze frame because the very next photo you can see they froze. What happens? What happens during this fight? They start clubbing them until they stop them? So attempt to incapacitate the shooter. Okay. Act with physical aggression. All right. Improvised weapons. There's such an emphasis on grab things in a gunfight. Use these improvised weapons. This is the one that there's a time and a place for it, but we have to tear this apart because there's too much emphasis on this. Commit to your actions. All right, so let's take a step back now. You are in, again, we're starting within the schools. You're in your classroom, you're in your cafeteria, you're in your hallway, wherever you're at within your place of business. Maybe you're an office personnel and you're in your office, or you're in the main office. We should always be naturally in a low-level state of the ready, aware of our surroundings. I'm not saying you have to think that, oh my gosh, there's going to be a shooter every single moment. No, that's not how to live life. But when you drove into your place of business, or you drove to the park, wherever you went, whenever you're in a vehicle, you're in a state of the ready. You're maintaining awareness, at least I hope you are, maintaining awareness of your surroundings. And if you're not, get off your cell phone. And you're ready for anything that could potentially come your way. This is how we should always be, and at least a low-level state of the ready, prepared to know where are our general exits in case there's any type of emergency, and who are the people within my environment? What are the different threats and hazards? And then, boom, the fight comes to you. Again, you do not go looking for the gun or the gunman. You're not looking for the fight. It is the fight that comes to you. Now, these are specific to a firearm. If an individual has a knife, or if there's an explosive threat, or even the use of fire as a weapon, or heck, even a vehicle, these all have different approaches to a fight than what you will have with a firearm. We're talking specifically about firearms because that's where we have to start. That's where the foundation is going to be laid before we can expand on to other things. When it comes to a firearm, you need to first get out and stay out of the line of fire. Okay, by setting ourselves up, as we've shown in previous videos, along the wall nearest the entrance and exit, the door, to where you perceived the violence to be occurring, the sound of violence. When you set up like that, what we call the stack, you are already putting yourself in position where you're out of the line of fire. And a lot more of this, we're going to come back to this. This is going to be beat into you over the next 3 episodes. You then gain control of the weapon, not the shooter. At that moment, it is the firearm that is your main threat, what people like to call the gun. It is the firearm, the weapon, that is the main threat. You first must control that. By controlling that, you control the individual. We'll talk more about that after the videos. And that's when your fight begins. You do whatever it takes to stop that threat. If you know how to use firearms, you want to use that weapon against them, okay. If you're comfortable with it. If you're not, don't. You can use other items. This is the time that you can start using improvised weapons, or even your own hands, fists, knees, elbows. This is after the weapon is controlled. So that's our basic introduction. I know it's now been 8 minutes of video play. We had to get initial introduction. Now I'm going to show you a video that me and my close friend and also fellow infantryman, a video that we had created to share with staff for when one or both of us were not able to be present, so that they could understand the fight portion. So stay tuned, jump to the next episode for that video.